The next thing we're going to be working on today is the radio. So this is, your factory radio that comes with the Land Rover. And I mean, it's fine. It has Bluetooth audio. It has Bluetooth phone and everything. But the wife really wanted Apple CarPlay. And I don't think that was available until you kind of got later into models. So we are going to be replacing this factory head unit with this new 10-inch unit with, I think it has Android. It has CarPlay. It has all the things that she could want. So I've already cut the box open. And so that is what it looks like. So new screen versus old one. I'd say let's go ahead and jump into the install. The first step to installing the radio is we're going to have to remove this trim piece. And if you remember from other videos, I've pulled this out so many times that I'm sure that the clips are just a lot easier. So you can use a plastic pry tool, and the reason you use hard plastic is so it doesn't mar anything up. But, I've done it so many times that I can pretty much just do it by hand at this point. So you just pull everything back. They're all pressure clips. And once you do that, there's that trim piece. We will be getting behind here because one of the harnesses has to plug into like a unit that's sitting behind the climate control. So all this stuff is going to have to come out as well. But the first step is we're going to go ahead and remove these 4 T20 bolts so we can remove this frame next. Now that we've removed the 4 Torx bolts, we can actually go ahead and remove this frame. We can set this aside. The next thing we're going to do is undo these bolts. So you have 4 more Torx bits, and that'll remove these side buttons here. With the new unit, it's going to be a lot bigger. So the buttons that are currently here separate should be touchscreen on the radio. So let's go ahead and get these bolts removed and we can move on. We've removed those bolts. These should just kind of come right off. And we'll probably go ahead, once we pull these off, we can just go ahead and undo these plugs. And then you also have 4 more Torx bits that are actually holding the radio in. So let's go ahead and remove those, unplug these, because like I said, with the new unit, we shouldn't need these buttons. All right, so we've done all of the bolts here. So now we should be able to pull the factory radio out. And as you can tell, I laid down a microfiber here just so we don't scratch anything. So we'll go ahead and undo all of these plugs. And this way we can set the factory radio aside. So the factory radio is removed. And full disclosure, all of the electronics from the factory radio is actually going to have to be transferred to this one. So it's going to be kind of sketch, but you know what? We'll get through it. So that's out. Next step is we're going to go ahead and remove the climate control and everything. And we can just keep moving along. Okay, so to remove the climate controls, if you don't remember before, we're going to pull these aluminum trim pieces towards us. They're all just held on by pressure clips. So if you can tell, that one just kind of popped right off. Then we'll go ahead and grab this one. That one also just popped right off. The screen, just pretty much, it's held on by pressure clips. So we just pop this right out of place. And the factory or aftermarket climate control will come right out. So it's just held on by this plug. So we'll go ahead and do that. So now the climate control is out. This is the aftermarket bracket for the aftermarket LCD screen. So we're going to remove this because this box right here will have to come out. So let's go ahead and undo these bolts here, and then we'll be able to get into that. Now, if you have, a factory L405 climate control, obviously yours will look a little different. The reason that this looks like this is because we just installed this aftermarket LCD screen, which is also made by the same manufacturer who makes the radio. So we'll go ahead and jump in. Now that we've removed the bracket, you have these 2 20mm bolts holding this in. So we'll go ahead and undo those so we can pull this out. So the next step is we're going to be transferring the kind of internal circuit board. All these plugs and everything are actually going to be on this new radio. So this is just a shell. So obviously everything is going to be transferred over. So the first step of taking this thing apart is we're going to go ahead and undo these little Torx bolts here. There are 4 of them. 1, 2, 3, and 4. So I have this little tiny toolkit, and I noticed that the T7 is what looks like that's kind of the right size. So we'll go ahead and put this in there, and we'll go ahead and start removing them. So I keep everything together. So we'll go ahead and go ahead. Just undid all 4 bolts, so we should be able to actually pull this part up. And okay, so from the factory, you have this like ribbon. You'll have to forgive me, I'm not a very technical person, but to undo that, as you can see, blue side up, so just remember that. And then what you can do is, if you want, you can take like a flathead tool, and you can kind of pry up this little black piece here, and that will release the ribbon, so you can release this from this. So we're just going to be transferring the electronics from this over to that. All this stuff will stay together. So we can go ahead, and I'm actually just going to use my hand. So you can just go ahead and pull up on this. So it's been undone. So there's that. There's the electronics. Just lift up on that, and we can take the factory ribbon out. So now, as I mentioned, we're going to set this aside. We're not going to need that. But we do want to undo this and transfer it to this. So we'll go ahead and work on removing this. As you can tell, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. So you have about 11 bolts that we're going to just be undoing so we can free up this board. So let's go ahead and jump in and get those removed. So just so you know, all of these bolts that I've already undone, those are all T7. However, there are 2 right here on the end, and these are slightly bigger. I am going to verify, but I believe these are T8s. But let's go ahead and check and confirm which ones are which. So this is actually a T10. Oh, so it's a T10. So just so you know, these two bolts are T10s. Now that we have undone all of the bolts, we can pretty much pull this board out. It does plug into this back half. There are two boards. So after we remove this one, you guys will see that there will actually be another board underneath, and they do click into each other. So when you do pull on it, just be very careful. I'm just grabbing it here from the end and just kind of pulling up a little bit, as I don't want to mess anything up. I'm gonna go ahead and pull up a little bit there, and then here you can kind of grab that tab and just pull up to disconnect this board from the bottom one. So I have separated, and you'll notice, see these like buttons right here, or these kind of clips, that clips into that and it kind of locks into place. So just know that when you are pulling these apart, you don't want to mess that up at all. So now that we've gotten this bar out, we can kind of just take this board out. You have to forgive me, I am doing this one-handed, and we'll start working on the other one. All right, so the old board is out, and then we also have this side. So we'll just undo these bolts, and then we should be able to pull this one out as well. Undid all the bolts on this, and now we can pull this out. And if you look, you got these plugs and everything. So this is going to be a NAND. So now that we have the electronics out from the factory radio, we're going to go ahead and start transferring over to the aftermarket radio here. So go ahead and set this stuff over here. So you know, with the factory radio, we're dealing a lot with Torx. This aftermarket one, you have like small Phillips heads. So first thing we're going to do is go ahead and disconnect the shell from this, which is basically these 4 bolts right here. So let's go and get these removed. So I've done the screws all around, so we should be able to just lift this here. This is going to be our new circuit board, but as you can tell, there is plastics. You're going to want to remove, you know, all this plastic and everything before transferring everything over, but this stuff is now going to go to that. So the next thing we're going to want to do here, let's go ahead and set that aside. Let's go ahead and take apart these 4 bolts here. So we'll go ahead and do that. So next we can go ahead and just remove this panel here. And with this set aside, you do want to make sure that you pull off, you know, all this plastic here. Yeah, it's just from the factory, but we'll go ahead and take all of that off. Okay, that's good. So now let's go ahead and transfer these electronics to this. So the first step is we're going to want to look at this here, right? And then, you know, these plugs are going to be coming out of here. So likely, you know, it's going to be sitting like that. So we just kind of flip this over, and, you know, obviously so see right there? See how that's... So what we're going to do is use our existing bolts that came out of the factory radio, the T20s. We'll go ahead and secure this one in. Now we have that bolted down. So the next thing we're going to want to do is take this, and see, these will have to come out of that. So that gives you an idea of the placement of, you know, where this needs to be. And also, like I said, this black plug right down here, that is going to line up with one on the other side of this board. So these two definitely have to be connecting. So not only can you know, ensure that everything is aligned, you know, from the holes perspective, but yeah, so those actually, you can feel it click into place, and then all the holes here should line up using these bolts. So go ahead and put these all in here, and we should be good. I actually lied. It is not a T7. T9 seems to fit nice and snug. The T7 was a little loose, and you don't want to strip them out. So T9 is what you're going to want for a majority of these, and then the slightly bigger ones that are in the center, those will be, I believe, T10. So those will actually go right here in those holes, but still we have 1, 2... Still have a couple more bolts that need to go into the circuit board to secure it. The bolts secured for the board. So the next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to put this cover on. But what you want to do is we are going to be having this ribbon kind of tie into this. So when you do line this up, you want to make sure that this window is lined up with this. So this way, once we can put the ribbon through that, we can close it with all the electronics being secured. So only that little opening will be for the ribbon to come through. So let's go ahead and install our 4 bolts, and we can go ahead and start attaching this to that. You remembered with the factory radio, we had the blue facing upwards, so that's how we're going to want this. So to get the ribbon in there, you just want to have it sit nice and snug within the prongs, and then you can push that black tab down, and I'll show what it looks like afterwards. It's going to be very challenging for me to do it with one hand since I am filming with one hand. So I'll go ahead and get this secured and show you guys what it's supposed to look like. Okay, so I pretty much just tucked it in there as much as I could, so it was nice and snug up against that, and then I pushed that tab down. So before we put this back together, though, we do have aftermarket wiring harness that's going to plug into the back of this, and I believe come out the bottom for the excess wire. So let's go ahead and grab that. Okay, so looking at the wiring here that it comes with, in here you have a microphone. In here you have your wiring harness and everything. Go ahead and undo that. Yeah, so there's all this. So go ahead and undo this, and I'll show you which ones to plug into this. All right, so with your harness, you want to plug this into here. I'm going to plug that harness into there, and then this one right here. And what we're going to do is you're going to have all these extra wires, and they'll plug into the factory spots. But what we're going to do is go ahead and kind of secure this back to the casing. We want to make sure that that doesn't get damaged. So I'm going to try to have as much coming out through the bottom as possible. But also, there should be a cable, I believe, for the GPS and 4G. So those will screw into that. So I got to make sure that I grab those cables and they're attached before I put everything back together. So this is the GPS antenna. We'll go ahead and undo this cap here. We'll go ahead and screw the GPS antenna one in. Then I have to find the 4G the 4G one as well. So go ahead and put this on here. Let's see. Yeah. So this is the 4G antenna, and that's going to attach right here. So go ahead and just pull that cover off, and then this will screw on to this. But this is the microphone, and for the aftermarket radio, we are going to have to run this likely through the A-pillar, probably mount the microphone somewhere up here. But we will get to that. And that will plug into, there is actually a mic plug right here. So that'll go right into there. And we will go ahead and plug everything into this. Okay, so the first thing I think we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and pull this out here, and we're going to undo this plug right on the back of this unit. So we'll undo that, and then when we come to our new harness here, basically that plug, that harness, will go right into this one. So what you want to do is you kind of want to look at it. Okay, you can see that the release clip is on top. So we go ahead and make that connection. You should hear it click, and then this will go right back into here. So we'll go ahead and push this into this radio. Should click into place. Actually, make sure. I'm going to make sure this is in, so go and do that. Okay, now that we have this fully secured in, I did have to fight it a bit to get it in there, but it should click into place and sit nice and flush like that. So next we have this wiring harness. So this is like the factory radio harness, and these should click right into place. Let me see here. Yep. And then this will actually click into that, but we'll do this last. Next, we're going to want to go ahead and just plug, well, I'm going to move this up a little bit, put it back into place so we can test it out, make sure everything works before, you know, securing everything back. So what we're going to want to do is connect all of these back to these. So obviously they're all color matched. You know, pink will go to the light pink, the dark pink will go to the dark, brown, brown, green, green, and then everything else kind of just plugs right into place. So we're going to want to plug this in last. So plug all this stuff in, that will be last. So let's go ahead and jump into that. Okay, so I have all these plugged in, all these here. They just kind of click right into place. The white wire's back in, blue wire's back in this one. The power is going to be the last one that we do, which is this one, which will go right into that. This here will actually, so if you don't remember, these were the switches for the buttons that were on the side of the radio. Because this is a bigger radio, those buttons should be available through the screen. So we only plug this into the left side harness. So let's go ahead and try to plug this in. Okay, so it should click into place. And from here, we just plug this very last one into there. Now we can test the radio and see if everything works. So let's see. Okay, so as you can see, I just have it sitting here because I just want to make sure the audio and everything works before we, you know, try hiding these wires and routing the mic and running the USB to the glove box and everything. So far it has turned on, which is good. It's a good step. Okay, awesome, perfect. So this is the factory radio settings, which is awesome. And then let's see here. So I can't connect my Bluetooth to this just because, you know, I'm recording right now. So it doesn't look like I can connect to the Bluetooth to show you how CarPlay works and everything. But what's really cool, guys, this is the factory like menu settings. So if for whatever reason this doesn't show up when you go to set up your radio, what you can do is go into this setting here, go into that, and then go over to vehicle settings. And there are these different, they're called screen ginsings. So what you can do is you can just go to say, okay, 5, go back and click the car button and see if it says no signal, that means you're on the wrong one. So then what you do is you go back to vehicle settings. 6, go back, home, hit the car setting. See, okay, so this looks like, see, when we first started it up, it was kind of like off to the side. Now everything is lined up as it should be. So looks good. Before we put everything back together, I do want to pull up the radio or something maybe and just make sure that there is sound and everything that comes out of here, you know, before we put it all back together. So let me see if I can grab a phone to test it out. All right, here's a video of everything that we installed today. So to start, we replaced the steering wheel controls with these like kind of touchscreen controls. Before, these buttons were really sticky because it was like I don't know if it was a plastic or rubber, but these have a much better feel to them, and obviously they are not sticky, so that's really nice. Then over here, we installed the autobiography style shifter. That was also sticky and it had like kind of rubber up top, so we replaced that. That's much nicer. Obviously, we have the AC controls here that we did last week, or not last week, I'm sorry, just a couple days ago. And then this is the radio. So normally the screen cuts off, the screen's usually here in the center, and then there's buttons on the side. Now everything is through the screen. So what's cool is if you hit this button right here, that's pretty much what the factory radio and setup looks like. And as I mentioned, instead of having the buttons along the sides, it's all part of the screen. So it's almost like having, you know, your factory radio in here. However, if you want to go to CarPlay, you can just hit this button to get into the apps, hit the CarLink 2.0, and then as you can see, you have the CarPlay. So you hit here, you got your Waze, you see all the phone numbers, and that's pretty much everything for today. I only have one more thing planned for the inside, and I'll do a video whenever it comes in. But I think all of these things together made a huge difference in this SUV.